Hey guys, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and today we're just going to talk a little bit about canter leads and making sure that your horse is picking up the correct canter lead and what to do if they aren't. This will also go a little bit into how to apply our rule of 3 to get our correct canter leads. So as far as teaching the cue for the canter lead goes, it's super easy if we can be clear, consistent, and follow through. The hard thing about the canter lead is if our horse has an old injury or has been working crooked, the conditioning that gets them to pick that correct canter lead up can take a long time. It can take a year or so to recondition a crooked horse if they're really developed on one lead over the other. I find with the green horses, if they haven't hurt themselves in the paddock, super easy, like they pick it up straight away. But if the horse has been in quite a lot of work and is consistently not picking up a canter lead one way and picking it up another way, then generally they have developed crookedly so that they can't lift through the shoulder, and then we have to do quite a lot of balancing work to try and get them to be able to lift that other shoulder up. So the cue, teaching the cue is the easy part. It's the conditioning that's the hard part. So if you've read through the Canter transition to canter module, you'll see the way that I break down the aid is outside leg says get ready to, and so what we're trying to do is we're using that leg to say think canter, think canter, think canter, think canter. When we feel our horse adjust their weight and reposition their body, and you can feel they're like, oh, thinking about canter, then inside leg asks for the strike off. So the reason why I do it this way is so that further on down the track they're really clear about what canter lead I want and how to strike off on that lead, so that when we're doing trot through, simple changes on a straight line, walk through, simple changes, and flying changes, they're super clear on the aid, and we don't have to go back and retrain their understanding of canter leads and the associated aid to get into it. So I'm not even thinking about seat here. I'm in a slightly forward 3-point seat, just getting off their back, allowing them to get into that canter as smoothly as they can, and just trying to cue train into that inside leg as the strike off. I will even tap them on the shoulder. They get it. They're really clever. They will figure it out. I think the worst thing that we can do for our horse is to underestimate their intelligence, and really simple little cues like that help to clarify what we're trying to do, especially when we have a horse that is curious and engaged in their learning, which is what trainability is about, is teaching them how to learn, teaching them how to engage in that learning process, so that when we get to these kinds of things where we're trying to train in a cue to get a specific canter lead, they're interested, they're curious, they're trying, they're giving us willingness, and they understand the learning process. They understand that if they figure it out, they're going to get a break, so they keep trying for us. In particularly, our green horses are generally more interested in learning, so I find they pick this up really quickly if they haven't injured themselves previously in the paddock. But if you've spent the time with a more educated horse to get them interested in what they're doing, they will also be able to figure it out from just tapping the shoulder. So the thing that drew my attention to this initially was when I was a kid. I had a pony, and there was one canter lead that he just wouldn't pick up, and what I figured out was that if I rode him in counterflexion, then he would always pick up that canter lead that he didn't want to pick up. And I think the reason why this stuck with me so much was because my instructor at the time saw me do this in Canter, and she's like, oh, you're lucky that he got the canter lead then because you had his head pulled out. And I was like, well, I wasn't actually lucky because I know that that's what I need to do to get my horse into canter, into that canter lead. So this is a reiteration to remind you that you know your horse better than anybody else does, and the little tricks that you figure out that work for your horse doesn't mean that you're wrong. They just need to help you figure out why your horse is struggling with that canter lead in the first place. So obviously being in counter flexion meant that I was freeing up his shoulder so that he could extend it into that canter lead. And really, if I had have been a little bit more mature, I would have been able to say to my instructor, look, I know that works for my horse, so that she could have then gone, oh, okay, well, obviously he's not engaging that hind leg properly. We have some restriction through the shoulder. We need to develop more evenly to help him get that canter lead without having to be in counter flexion to get it. So initially, if you have an educated horse that just isn't picking up the canter lead because they're crooked, we kind of let them do whatever they can to get that canter lead initially. So you want to experiment around with it a little bit, maybe ask for it without you in the saddle, see if you can get it there, ask for it over jump, ask for it over pole, let them fall in, let them turn sharply, whatever it is, just play around a little bit. It's not pretty. We're just trying to get the correct canter lead. And that way, when we do get the correct canter lead, we can say, yay, you're amazing, well done, and reward them for having the correct canter lead. But we can also reassess what got the canter lead for them so that we can help where they've got gaps in their conditioning and where they've developed crookedly. So one of my other students that I've had, it's just probably the most recent one that has had issues with getting the canter lead, her horse would spin at the corner. And so if you were trying to get into canter to get the correct canter lead, so every time you went into the corner and you let it spin to canter, then it would pick up the canter lead. If you tried to ride the corner correctly, then it would pick up the wrong canter lead every time. So we have to kind of let the horse do what's natural to it to get what we want first so that we can reward them for it so they know what the right behavior is. It's no good setting these high expectations and these high standards of quality if it means that our horse can't get a win. So first, we're just trying to get a win with our horse. We're just trying to show them the behavior that we want, which is the correct canter lead. Once we have them understanding that the reward is for that specific canter lead, then we're trying to cue train that lead into the leg, so you can make it super clear, like I said, by touching their shoulder and then bringing that back to your leg to get that strike off, so that they are mentally associating that aid with that canter lead. Once we're getting that canter lead, then we use the same spot of the arena initially because the repetition and the consistency shows them the pattern so that they can associate even just the spot of the arena with the behavior that's wanted. Once we have the what we want established in that single spot, then we can start challenging the horse. Can you pick that canter lead up in another corner? Can you pick that canter lead up on a circle? Can you pick that canter lead up on a straight line? And then we're trying to associate it to the actual aid and not to the area of the arena. But it means that if we do it in another area and they get the wrong canter lead, we can bring them back to that area that they are confident in, that they know what is going to be asked of them, and they can have a win and we can still finish on a win. So if you think that your horse has developed crookedly and that's why it's not picking up the correct canter lead, the exercises that you need to do are definitely your reinbacks. You've got to get them thinking a little bit more into their haunches so that they're developing their balance from their haunches first. and also your 10-meter loops. We've got to get that shift in weight distribution. We've got to get them feeling comfortable getting off one shoulder, getting off the other shoulder, so that when we do ask for that canter, there's room for movement through the shoulders for them to lift and extend to get that canter lead. The other thing that needs to happen is the hind leg has to be traveling through. So if that hind leg isn't in a position of weight bearing, then they can't weight bear on that hind leg to extend through the shoulder. So their balance is in the shoulder because it's not in the hind. So of course they're not going to be able to lift it very easily, so that it's going to be harder to get the canter lead. So the weight, where the weight bearing is distributed, and then being able to move that weight bearing easily. So then lastly, the canter transition happens over the pole. When we have a green horse or a horse that's working on the forehand, so all of our green horses are on the forehand, but some of our educated horses are on the forehand as well. So if we've got a horse pulling itself into canter, then they're just going to kind of pick up the lead that they are least heavy on. So what the transition over the canter pole does is it makes them jump into the air. And so as all 4 feet are off the ground, you have a better chance of actually getting the canter lead that you want, because it's not grounded from them pulling into the ground. So how to apply our rule of 3 with getting our correct canter leads? First, we just want them going into canter. So like I was talking about in the beginning, if we're saying get ready to canter on, and they're not cantering off of that leg aid, then we just need to get them into canter, and we're rewarding for them being in canter. So we've just got to get them thinking about canter and knowing that we're going to follow through on getting them into canter before we can make it any better. We've got to get them thinking about being in canter first. So you will do the transition into canter. Was my horse confident and picked it up straight away? Yes. Then did it get the correct canter lead? Then yes. Now you can start thinking about maintaining the canter for a little bit. If you asked for canter and you had to hustle a little bit to actually get the canter, then you do that 3 times and see if you get that any better. And then you're changing the exercise, so you can go the other way and get the canter lead that way. The one thing to keep in mind with how many repetitions you're doing here is your horse getting tired, and are you getting tired? So this is the exercise where our horses are going to really struggle with their fitness level. So if you're doing 3 each side and your horse is flogged, then you try and go back and get better. It's not going to get any better. So this might be where you would have a good walk break, a long rein before you asked again, and maybe change the exercise up, maybe with your trot loops, or maybe you would even just finish on that. When I'm doing a green horse at this level, we will have done our trot work, and at the end I go 3 transitions to canter on the right lead, 3 transitions to canter on the left lead, and finish on whatever I have. So then our horse also has that pathway of consequence that they're going to finish for the effort that they put into this canter. If your horse is a little bit further along, then you might do these transitions into canter as part of your warm-up, and then you're doing a better canter in the training section of your training session. So you can come back to it if you know your horse is fit enough and up to it to really work on refining the quality of the aid. So firstly, is my horse going into the canter when I say canter on? And then secondly, is my horse going into the correct canter lead when I say canter on? So if you're saying canter on, you get the wrong canter lead, canter on, get the wrong canter lead, canter on, get the wrong canter lead, then you're at your 3. You're not going to finish on that 3rd one because the horse needs to understand that that's not what you want. So if you stop there, then you're reinforcing that is what you want. So obviously when you start getting to 6, 7, 8 ask, your horse is going to start getting physically tired. So if they haven't figured it out by then, you need to sit back and reassess, am I communicating what I want properly? And can my horse actually do it? So if your horse isn't picking up that canter lead, then you can go over to the other lead, pick the canter lead up correctly that time. Your horse is too tired to kind of keep going. Give them a pat, finish on a good note, get them associating what they finished for. And then you need to kind of rethink about your communication. Is it clear? And is my horse conditioned for this exercise? Can he pick up this canter lead? If not, then what are your exercises? Transition over pole, your straightening and balancing exercises in trot, and your rein back and your rein back over a pole. They are all going to help your horse develop to be able to get that correct canter lead. It may take a while. It just depends on how established your horse is. If this is the issue that you're having with your horse and you're going on the correct canter lead and you're like, yay, I've got the correct canter lead, and so you do a bunch that way, and then can't get it all the other way, all you're doing is making your horse more crooked. So you only want to get one or two on your good way and really focus on this way until they are able to lift up and free up this shoulder, so that you're starting to develop the strength of this canter lead to be able, for the horse to be able to sustain it. You don't want to encourage that crookedness further by keeping them going on their good canter lead without challenging this bad canter lead. So obviously, as I said, just you're going to have to assess your horse and figure out what is going wrong there. The other thing, lastly, is if you have a new horse that somebody else has trained, everybody rides their canter differently. So as I say, I teach get ready to canter on. That's not how a lot of people teach canter. And particularly if you've gone from a educated horse to a green horse, you're going to be trying to use your seat to get canter. But when you use your seat on a green horse, all you're doing is hollowing their back away, so you have less chance of actually getting the correct canter lead because you'll be disengaging the hind. So if you're on a green horse, you want to be, in a slight forward 3-point seat to stay off their back to encourage them to get that canter lead. You might figure out which way you can lean your balance slightly to help them get the canter lead. And then over time, by the time we're doing tempo changes in canter, that's when you're going to be starting to get into your proper upright seat, and you're going to be getting weight into the saddle, and the horse isn't going to be hollowing away from your weight. Also, keep an eye on how we talk about how to ride the canter. Don't just grind your seat into their back. A lot of instructors talk about using your seat like an ice cream cone to scoop the saddle, but your seat bones control what the hind legs are doing. So we're not jumping along like kangaroos. So you want to isolate that pelvic action. So for the canter lead that you're on, let's say we're on the right canter lead, you're controlling that little bit more engagement. That's through that inside hind. So you're doing short, tight circles with the inside hind and bigger circles with your outside hip to control what the outside hind is doing. So we're almost doing like a figure of 8 with our hips to control what the horse is doing, not a scooping action that is going to hollow their back away. We're trying to lift the hindquarters up into us. If you have any more questions about your canter leads, feel free to reach out and ask us. If I think that it's just your horse specifically, we'll give you information specific to your horse to help you. If I think that it's like a nice broad spectrum question that lots of people are going to ask, then we might do another video. And don't forget that we're doing our trainings in the Facebook group as well. So have fun riding. Love to hear how you're going with everything. And I will talk to you guys again later. Bye!